So hello everyone, Hugo here from TechQuartier. Today for our Founder Insight series, we have the luck to have with us Friedhelm Schmitt, who is the founder of a very prominent local startup here in Frankfurt called Fincite.
So, what is Fincite? Let's maybe start with that, right? So we see ourselves as a fintech, as a financial technology company. We are working in the space of digital asset management. So we are a platform as a service provider for large banks, for large insurance companies and asset managers. And what we enable our clients to do is that with our software they are able to provide all types of digital asset management services to their end clients. So we are a B2B 4C company, and among these applications that can be built on top of our software, that is robo-advice, but that is also classical portfolio management, digital advice. These are the applications that can be built on top of our software. I am co-CEO, so I'm managing the company together with my two co-founders and colleagues, Stefan and Ralph. We have split the company into three parts. So there is Fincite Build, which is my area. There is Fincite Grow, which is Ralph's area, and there is Fincite Operate, which is Stefan's area.
A bit more about you. So when did you actually start the company, and were you one of those serial founders that always knew he wanted to start a business?
Yeah, exactly. So I always wanted to do my own thing, to found my own business, and when I actually founded Fincite, I founded a company before that was named Finstarter, and I did this when I was 26 years old. So I just had roughly 1.5 years, 2 years of industry experience working for a hedge fund, and then I decided it was a good time, still young, not much to lose, and that's when I decided to really do my own thing. And with my good friend Stefan, that I know from school, we decided, let's give it a try, and let's take the risk. And here we are.
And so this question of why you decided to start it. So you've always wanted to start a business. I guess it's empowering to have your own business, to run your own show. So was that part of the reason, is like personal reason, or was it?
I think there's always some intrinsic reason to it, right? I think you do not only you need to be a founder from your heart, right, to really bring something forward and make it successful. But of course there was also a business reason behind it, right? Working in asset management and seeing really how undigital all these processes were, really seeing on how the majority, or how almost everything was still Excel based, and on the other hand having in mind that finance is actually something that is purely mathematics and data with a service cover around it. That's where we saw the great opportunity to digitize it, right? And I think this was the business opportunity that we saw in asset management. And of course it took years of refinement and years also of learning to be able to eventually shape a product out of it.
And I mean, when I hear robo-advisor, like not being from a fintech background, I think there are a lot, there's other robo-advisors that were born in Frankfurt. I'm thinking of Jinmon, for example. Exactly. So was that part of a trend? Like, was it a wave that you saw also kind of starting in the industry, or even broader in the financial sector, that you said, you know what, like there's actually a business case here for...
Yeah, I mean, we started Fincite, or the company before, we started that 7 years ago, right? By that time, the term fintech did not even exist, right? So, I mean, I do not claim to be a super visionary in that, right? But I think what I can say is that I saw some sort of tendency. I mean, everything around me was being digitized, especially in e-commerce by that times, right? And I could not really understand why should banks, why should asset management really be a really be different, right? I mean, traveling was being being digitized. So I saw that, I somehow sensed that trend, right? Before the term robo-advice even exists. But I mean, how we build Fincite is we do differentiate from the traditional business, from the traditional robo-advisors, because I mean, we are actually empowering banks, we are empowering insurers, asset managers to provide these type of digital applications in these fields, because we think this type of or this business model of robo-advice, it's to some extent also a channel that eventually every already existing institution, financial institution, is going to have or wants to own, right? And I think this is where we saw our business opportunity. And we sometimes compare it a bit like a website, right? And like a website in the 90s. You were a bank, you did not have a website, then suddenly you needed to have a website. I think we're seeing a sort of similar trend with robo-advice, and we want to be part of that.
I see. Tell us a bit maybe about your the first days, like when you first started off. Like, did you just up and leave your job and then started the business? You're three co-founders, so maybe you could share the burden in some ways. But how was the experience the first year, for example?
Yeah, I think it was tough, and but I think it needs to be tough, because this is giving you the strengths and the basis, and also the inner confidence that you're going to make it eventually, right? So yeah, I actually did that. I quit my job, and then I decided, okay, before I really start something new, I would go to travel, and I traveled to Peru, and that's actually where I met these guys that were at that time founding an IT company, right? And up until today, we have a large development center in Peru, and really the roots are from this journey that I did after quitting my job by that time in Switzerland.
Just that's not a common. I mean, I know you have office in Ukraine. You told me earlier,
Ukraine,
so
Peru,
that's a bit more typical. But Peru, for the first time I hear about a development center in South America, actually. So
yeah, it was, as I said, it was more of a coincidence, right? Would I have traveled, I don't know, to Malaysia, India, whatsoever? Yeah. Maybe we would have a development center there by now, right? But coming back to your question, then I came back from that journey, and I knew I had some savings, I knew I had a timeline, right, or a lifeline, and that's where there's a fly flying around here, and that's where I said, okay, I give it a shot, right? I give myself that time to develop the business, and either it's picking up or it's not picking up, and then I would have gotten back to a day job, right? But that was, of course,
it picked up, I guess.
it picked up, and so thanks for that. And that was, I think I was very fortunate about this. But that was not easy, right? I mean, seeing your lifeline shrink every day, and you trying to work against that's not an easy thing to do, right?
And so the runway got a bit longer, and was that because you got new customers on board, or what, did you get financing? Like, how was it that you first got traction?
I think what sets Fincite really apart from the other fintechs in the Frankfurt ecosystem is that we, up until today, we're purely self-financed. So we're actually bootstrapped. We're 100% owned by the founders, and we were very lucky to have very good clients from the very beginning, and they were really supportive, and they were also enabling us to really build the software. They were buying into our vision of the market, and together we were able to really shape this industry also to some extent, especially here in Frankfurt.
So it's a voluntary choice, I mean, to not go and get external financing or give out equity, I guess, or at some point, if you want to scale, I'm guessing it's gonna be, it's a part of the discussion that you...
But I mean, these were different times, right? This was 7 years ago, and I did not even have a name to say what am I really doing, right? By that time it was IT services, it was an IT product that I was that I was trying to build. So I think times were different. If you ask myself, would I do it exactly the same way now with all the experience I have? maybe not. Maybe we would we would take VC funding right away. But on the other hand, it was also very conservative, a very secure way of building a business. And you need to really know also what you want in life, what you want for the next few years. And based on that, it's always a very individual decision, right? But in general, I would say, if you know your product, if you have a sense for your market, and you really want to scale fast, go for VC money. Try to find really good partner. Try to find smart money that is also giving you access to the network, and that's actually not so easy in Frankfurt, right?
That was bringing me to that question actually. So, it's a good segue. In 7 years, you've seen the scene change. You've seen the word fintech appear. You've seen this new trend building up of startups. It's kind of the hype right now. So, would it be different if you started your business today? You alluded to it, but how have you seen the ecosystem change? Perhaps for the better, or what's your take on how Frankfurt has evolved as a place to start and grow a business?
Yeah, I think by the time we started, there was only one accelerator coming from Zurich. That was everything that the European ecosystem had to offer. And nowadays we see, of course, there's a lot more availability when it comes to accelerators, when it comes to also specialized VC funding. But that's taking the European or the at least the German viewpoint, right? Mm-hmm. But still, if I would be starting off again today, I think I would not only be looking at Frankfurt, definitely not. I would be rather looking at Germany, and maybe not even that. I would try to seek for funding in the UK or even in the US. I think there's still the best opportunities there, and especially when it comes to network, also when it comes to how visionary you are in really bringing your product forward. And I think we're still too much focused on what we have here and really not looking at the larger scale.
That's one of the conclusions that I'm bringing the Frankfurt Startup Ecosystem Report. But that's one thing that GF Gauthier came to Frankfurt to talk about, is the global vision. You have to have for your project, and for the scalability needs to be almost at the day one. How you see yourself grow, and that's, for instance, why startups in Israel, for example, they don't have almost the luxury of having a big interior market. So right away they think, okay, how can this apply in the US? How can this apply in other big markets in Asia and in Europe? So that's one of the key, I think, to grow an ecosystem, is to have people connected with other ecosystems globally, and already have that international mindset. So
that is true. What is favoring us a bit is actually regulation, right?
Okay.
We're unifying regulation all over Europe, so I think that's a good step forward. But I think Germany as such is not it's not the best market to start. It's an okay market to start if you want to really expand throughout Europe. But if you're aiming for the US, New Zealand, Australia, these type of things, then it's of course much favorable to start in the UK, right? If you aim for South America, this region, then it's much favorable to start in Spain, right? And but if you really aim for Asia, for example, then in all over Europe you're still very lost, right? And you depend on external help, on really experienced people that have a network into Asia to really be able to attack that market with also a reasonable opportunity to succeed, right? And that's not easy, right?
One thing, now that you're having success, you're still based in Frankfurt, you're expanding globally, but if I talk a lot about this report, but another thing that was obvious but in the Frankfurt Ecosystem Report was that one of the key success factors for an ecosystem is when successful founders come back in the ecosystem and invest in local startups, when they share about their successes with other founders, when they create these networks of business angels locally, like the guy who started rocket internet. He was a success story, you know. That's how Berlin came to be this hub, you know. Partly it's because he came back and he has his friends now, and they all reinvest in local startups. So are you seeing at some point in the future, like, you know, the Fincite is a success story and you and others will kind of reinvest in Frankfurt and try to, I think you started a VC arm now to Fincite,
exactly.
so is that part of the reasoning that...
Yeah, I think partly it is, yeah. On the other hand, I think, I mean, we started Fincite Ventures because we saw, as I said, finance is something that is, on the one hand, data and math driven, right? So when you look at portfolio management and asset management, right, in order to select the right investment product for you, in order to select the right allocation, what is it that you need? You need data, right? You need financial data. You need data on the individual, on the investor, and you need math, right? You need models. You need algorithms in order to be able to shift to shape these type of things, right? But that is one part. The other part is transactional, right? At the end, you need to buy or sell something, right? And as we were not too much covering that within Fincite at the beginning, we saw that this is really an interesting playing field. And on the one hand, this transactional thing part, but on the other hand also that we saw more and more asset classes appearing, right? So we envision a future where it becomes super easy to buy and sell things, new asset classes emerge. We see that with peer-to-peer credits, we see that with crowdfunding, we see that with cryptocurrency, right? And so there's a lot of also movement, and there's a lot of things in this transactional part, right? So we wanted to be part of this. This was also one of the reasons that we found Fincite Ventures, and we are sort of giving back. We're giving back mostly experience, right? So when it comes to how do you scale a company, how do you build a technology company, what are the pitfalls that you need to look at when building a technology, what are processes that you need, right? How do you get funding? What are VCs looking for? All these type of things, right? We have a lot of experience, and that's something where we said, okay, this is something we can give back to the founders, to the portfolio companies we're involved with, and
there's a business case behind it. If you're an involved investor, you're hands-on, you're sharing your so it's good for the ecosystem that you do this, but it's also that there's a real business reasoning behind it.
Investing is about getting risks out of a certain venture or endeavor that you have, right? And I mean, there are three main risk drivers in investing into young companies, which one is the team, the other one is the market, and the third one is technology/product, right? And I think we have a lot of experience when it comes to team, but we have especially a lot of experience when it comes to building the product, right?
When it comes to finding those teams, finding those founders, so there's 230,000 students in Frankfurt. A lot of them have ideas, have ambition. So how do you get these people that are potential founders to actually, you know, make the jump? And how do you generate that interest in those people to join startup, to get involved in the ecosystem?
I think that's the most difficult part in Frankfurt, to be honest. I think access to money is one thing that is always a bottleneck, but really access to talent is that, especially in Frankfurt. I think Berlin, there it's a lot easier, but especially Frankfurt. Frankfurt is not known so much for its startup community, for its startup ecosystem. People that come here to work are rather looking for work at a bank, at a consulting firm. In Frankfurt, not so much for a startup. People are not so much tech focused, they're rather finance focused, right? Really finding good tech people here is difficult, and then also from a wage perspective you compete against banks that still have good budgets to pay their people, right? And I think that's definitely something that is a challenge, but I think in every challenge there's also an opportunity. So I think you need to position yourself really as a great company, as a great place to work at, right? It's at Fincite, for example, we won several awards as really being a great employer. We have great team satisfaction, we have regular team barbecues, we have a lot of benefits, we have free gym, we have a lot of team activities, right? So that's something that you cultivate and you do to really build a team that is appealing also for others to work. And yeah, I think that's the challenge that startups need to face here, especially in Frankfurt.
That's something we've seen as well. We're trying also to build this kind of environment at TQ. Maybe then in conclusion, like what's up and coming for Fincite? You now have 70 employees. You're present in a lot of countries, but you know, with centers in 3 different countries in South America and Europe. So what are your upcoming challenges and your upcoming objectives?
Yeah, I think we're in a growth phase now, right? So we need to manage expansion, right? We need to manage the expansion of the client base on the one end. So we are taking clients all over Europe now, rolling out the software in different countries, in different regulatory regimes, in different tax regimes also, right? So I think that's definitely a challenge. We constantly need to manage growth, right? And yeah, these are, I think, the main factors. So growth, scaling, but at the same time, and I think that's especially important for me and my role, is really keeping team satisfaction up, keeping client satisfaction up, so that we stay and remain to be the reliable partner for our team members as well as for our clients that we were in the past, right? Because we do not want to sacrifice any quality in this aspect for just pure growth. That's
Great.
Super important for me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your insights. Thanks for your time. We're gonna get out the sun now because we're melting.
Here, yeah.
But thanks a lot.
Great. Cool.